Gather round and let me tell you something very scary. Scarier than a Haitian mortician. Scarier than Trump's White House renovations. Scarier than another Colleen Hoover book being turned into a movie. I mean, come on, how is Allison Williams the mom? This is the terrifying true tale of Les Wexner. A very, very rich man who lived in the biggest house in the whole state. His house was so big, the dining room table had hydraulic lifts so it could be set from below and hoisted into the dining room. He was invited to every party. Women were throwing themselves at him. On the outside, everything was perfect. But he was hiding a dark secret. He had given access to his billion-dollar fortune to a person that would become one of the most notorious criminals in American history, Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein lived in his properties. Epstein used his contacts. He even posed as a model scout for Wexner's company, Victoria's Secret, to lure his victims. When Les Wexner's dirty secret was exposed, he tried to say he had no idea. And he blamed it on the demon living inside his head. That's me. But I know the real culprit. Mommy issues.
Welcome to the Corporate Gossip Podcast. It's the business podcast for gossip lovers. We explore the most absurd corporate scandals, the juiciest Wall Street tea, and the not-so-hidden secrets of famous business people. You don't need to know anything about business to enjoy the Corporate Gossip Podcast, but you might learn something along the way. This is Victoria's Secret, sex pests all the way down.
Speed.
Welcome back to the Corporate Gossip Podcast. I'm your host, CPA Scorned, Becca Platsky, and I'm here with my brother and my co-host,
Joey Fatone. Data analytics playboy Adam Platsky.
And maybe you've noticed, wow, guys, you've made some choices with your fashion today. And you'd be right, because sometimes, on this podcast, we don't just do the research. We also try to inhabit the characters. And for this episode in particular, I asked if it would be okay if we channel the 90s and the early 2000s. And so you can see really what we did here. I think, Adam, really, you took it to the max. He's got, for those listening, do you want to describe your fit?
I've got a hairstyle that can only be described as hair wall.
Was it easy for you to do that?
Lauren did it for me. We used a lot of product. And I was like, "Are you having fun doing this?" She was like, "Yeah, I am." And I was like, "Okay, that's what
It's
matters."
the type of hair that people did.
She knows. I think everybody knows what a hair wall is.
Okay, where you push up
Because I was asking, I was like, hair wall?
Yeah.
People know what that is.
Yeah. And then go ahead, head to toe.
And I'm wearing a
Wait, you missed
Oh,
the
and
middle
then
of
I shaved a goatee.
So you're wearing, it's a little odd, like facially, because you have the haircut of a 16-year-old and the facial hair of a 40-year-old.
And I shaved a goatee, and then my outfit is inspired by a Backstreet Boys photo op where they're all wearing hockey jerseys and joggers. So I'm wearing
Did you have those?
this hockey jersey my buddy Fran gave me. It's a little bat blue hockey jersey. And then these are from Sopranos Thanksgiving.
Oh, right.
These are Nike.
I think from Costco or Sam's Club.
No, I think they're actually from Etsy. They were thrifted.
I bought mine from when we did Sopranos Thanksgiving.
We thrifted. These are Nike trail pants, and I'm wearing foam posits, which, if you were a basketball fan from the 90s, were this guy named Penny Hardaway. It was his signature shoe, Little Penny. So that's my outfit. Is there anything in addition that I'm wearing? No. But what was great about New York City is you can just wear this outfit and no one looks any. I was like, fuck, I can't believe I'm going to walk through Times Square like this. No one gives a shit.
Nope. You're barely the weirdest looking person that anyone will pass.
I'm like a little weirder looking, and it's the hair because it's like
I think it's
too
the
much
hair
product.
goatee combo.
Yeah.
I am wearing a flannel, a loose fitted flannel that I got. That Adam
flannel that I gave you.
Yep,
Well,
Adam letting me borrow.
That flannel is a vintage Eddie Bauer.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So look at the tag.
Yep. And that's kind of giving a little bit grunge. I have my flared pants and my like chunky black boots. And then, of course, I have 2 little butterfly hair clips in my hair that I actually had. The vintage place that I go to by my apartment when I was getting a bunch of jewelry for my wedding. She just gave me a bunch of other stuff that she had laying around, including these hair clips, which I love. So I have those as well. I actually want to give a huge disclaimer before we start this podcast. And I actually don't even know if you know this, but did you know that I actually used to model for the Limited 2?
Yes.
You did?
No, I didn't.
One time when I was in Girl Scouts, they took us all to the mall and we got to go to the Limited 2 and we got to do a full fashion show. And Mom was there and I got to put on anything I wanted in the store and we'd walk down the aisles. Nothing was purchased, but it was genuinely one of the best days of my life. Core memory.
Was it meant to be purchased? Were things meant to be purchased?
I'm sure there was some type of like, you know, I think they let us do it for free, but under the impression that some girls were going to buy some things. You know, come with their mom to a store and try stuff on. But I remember exactly what I wore.
I don't think you were allowed to wear Limited 2. It was too slutty.
It was very, I wore it sparingly, but the chance to go and try everything on was quite a memory for me. And I remember what I wore, and I actually recreated the bottom half of that outfit today, which was flare jeans and chunky black boots. Do you remember those stretchy shirts that came in one size this was a girl thing, so maybe you weren't aware of them.
Why would I remember that?
So there were stretchy shirts. I wore one of those, and then a black leather pleather jacket. And I had my hair similar to how it is today. And I fucking rocked that outfit. And if I could have recreated it today, I would have. But unfortunately, I couldn't find either
I
of those
asked
items.
Lauren, I said, do you think it would be okay if I just got ice tips just like for
should.
now? I think it plays.
Yeah. And what she said no?
No. And we're going to see an apartment after we record this. And I was like, all right, so I'll see you at the showing. And she was like, and I was like, and I'm wearing this. And she was like, no, you need to bring a change of clothes. And I was like, why? She was like, you can't wear a costume to an apartment showing. And I was like, don't appropriate my culture, bitch.
And listen, I just want to say, I told you I modeled for Limited 2, but I am a professional and I can put that experience aside and really be objective about my fellow models under the Les Wexner umbrella. So like my coworkers, Tyra Banks, you know, Giselle Bundchen, Adriana Lima, Bella Hadid, like I can talk about them
Angel
objectively.
Candace.
Yeah. Angel what?
Angel Candace?
Angel Candace.
Candace.
Who's that?
Swine pole.
I've no
also
idea.
known as Angel Candace.
I've never heard of that before in my life. Anyway, these angels were women who walked at the very famous Victoria's Secret fashion show. Do you have the memory of us running around in New York City when we were kids?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. We were walking around New York City, and we were, I don't know where we were walking, we were somewhere downtown, and there was like a big step and repeat and an awning.
Yeah.
And there was security for the Victoria's Secret fashion show. And I tried to, I was like 12, and I tried to walk in. The security guard was like, what are you trying to do here? I was like, I'm the massage therapist.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
And the guy cracked up, and then he sent me back to Dad.
I'm sure you were one of many 12-year-olds who tried to breach the Victoria's Secret fashion show.
Airtight in there.
So that would have been 2002?
I don't know. It would have been somewhere between 2002 and 2005.
So at the peak, you know, those angels that I talked about, Giselle and Tyra, Heidi Klum, they're household names now, but the Victoria's Secret fashion show really catapulted them into stardom. In 2001, so they normally do this show around Valentine's Day, 2001, 12.4 million people watched a lingerie fashion show on cable television. For comparison, the World Series last year, an average of 15 million people watched those games. Did you know in the early 2000s they tried to open a fashion cafe that would have been like the Hard Rock Cafe or Planet Hollywood or the Rainforest Cafe?
With angels?
With models.
Nice.
I don't know if they'd be serving you, but it was kind of like an ode to them, which I'm like, bring back a bold themed restaurant. Like, enough farmhouse. Don't need to see it again. Like, give me fully commercialized restaurants at this point.
The Hollywood Cafe or Planet Hollywood just opened up in Midtown Manhattan again.
It did?
Yeah, I told you that like 2 months ago.
No, I missed it. Listen.
And they built an entire Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville.
Oh, I've been
towering
there.
over the sky.
Oh, I've been there.
Like, you know that they're doing fine.
It rips. Listen, I have a feeling about these mega corporations, but I have a stronger feeling around nostalgia. And if there's a Rainforest Cafe around, I'm going to hit that up. Would you be completely shocked to find out that had you breached the security perimeter at the Victoria's Secret fashion show in 2001, you might have encountered a creepy little gremlin lurking behind the curtain and harassing the models?
No, I wouldn't be surprised, Rebecca.
Here's Ed coming up behind Carly Kloss, wrapping his arm around her neck. Don't love that picture. Do you think she looks happy? I think she looks like she's tolerating him. Here he is addressing all of the angels. The man that I'm talking about is Ed Razek, who retired from Victoria's Secret in 2019 after 36 years in the C-suite. He invented the Victoria's Secret fashion show, and when it came to models, he was a kingmaker. This is from an article called Angels in Hell, which is a New York Times investigation. In this article, we meet Andy Musey, who started modeling in the VS fashion show when she was 17 and had worked for the company for 2 years. The 19-year-old was invited to dinner with Mr. Razek. She was excited to cultivate a professional relationship with one of the fashion industry's most powerful men. She described Mr. Razek as somebody who exuded toxic masculinity. She summed up his attitude as, I am the holder of the power. I can make you or break you. He sent her intimate emails for months. At one point, he suggested they move in together in a house in Turks and Caicos. Keep in mind, this man is in his 50s. Another time, he urged her to help him find a home in the Dominican Republic for them to share. I need someplace sexy to take you, he wrote. She rejected his advances, and then the next year, she was not invited back to the fashion show. Ed was a shithead also to non-models. There was an executive vice president of public relations, Monica Mitro, who had worked for the company for decades, and she was harassed by Ed for years. She went actually to the board of directors to express that like she had been subjected to verbal abuse that had left her in tears many times. She shares what's going on with Ed, and she gets fired. The people who worked with her at the time just said that one day, like, her emails bounced back and they never heard from her again in a work context. She ended up getting a settlement. Ed's son, apparently, also worked for Victoria's Secret, and he was reported to HR for harassing female colleagues and was transferred to Bath & Body Works, which is also under the umbrella. Maybe they thought, like, the sales...
you're not going to be tempted there.
I was just gonna say, they're a little more matronly over there.
Yeah.
The woman he mistreated at Victoria's Secret also received a settlement. Do you think that, my question is, like, are these settlements, Ed's and his son's, are they part of his pay package? Like, they have to account for that at some point. Despite these settlements, despite the number of high-ranking employees who were put on leave or quit in protest over the treatments, the CEO of L Brands, Les Wexner, who at the time owned Victoria's Secret, Bath & Body Works, and a bunch of other companies that we'll get into, still supported Ed Razek. In 2013, Les helped Ed raise money for a $1.2 million fund in Ed's name at the OSU Cancer Center. So when Daddy still gets a wing named after him for cancer kids after he tries to kiss models, ask them to sit on his lap behind stage and touch one of their underweared crotches, all true, obviously you're going to think it's okay for you to harass somebody bad enough to warrant a settlement. And the truth is, Les Wexner needed Ed. Ed was his capo. This is from an article by Puck. While Wexner could be ruthless in his business, he disliked confrontation. Over the years, he attached himself to deputies like Ed who were willing to do his dirty work, to say the things to his employees or partners or lawyers that he would rather not say himself. In deputizing and legitimizing creeps like Ed Razek, and as we'll still soon learn, Jeffrey Epstein received a lot of those same benefits from Les. He's solving the age-old issue for American businesses, which is how can we create a toxic and dangerous environment for everybody that works for us at scale? No matter the cost to our business, no matter the cost to our brand and to shareholder value, we'll do what it takes. Les Wexner was an expert at terrorizing at scale. I'll note he is still alive, though he's not in his current role. And before we dive into the episode, I'll note that this was actually a recommendation from our listener named Linda, who read a book called When Women Ran Fifth Avenue, Glamour Power at the Dawn of American Fashion by Julie Satow. I read Selling Sexy, Victoria's Secret, and the Unraveling of an American Icon by Lauren Sherman and Chantal Fernandez. Both of those books you can find in our bookshop.org storefront that's in our show notes. In addition, we will be linking below all the reporting that we included in the show notes, including a number of articles by Columbus Dispatch. So shout out to them. Adam, you ready to dive into a pile of G-strings?
Yeah, G-strings. G-strings and bras.
Corporate gossip number 1 is sex pests all the way down. If you listeners are wondering, like, why does the name Les Wexner sound familiar? I feel like I've heard that name recently. It's because his message to Jeffrey Epstein was recently revealed in the famous birthday book. It was actually his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein that ultimately led to his resignation from the firm he founded in 2019. We'll get to that whole story in a bit. And remember, you can always use the chapters in Spotify. They do automatic chapters on YouTube as well. But if you're listening on iTunes, I have the timestamps in the show notes. So here's a picture of Jeffrey Epstein and Les Wexner, and then the page of his birthday book. Les says, "Dear Jeffrey, I want to get you what you want, ... So here it is. And then a picture of
Boobs.
80085. It turn that upside down in a calculator.
How often are you drawing boobs as an adult? I think the amount of times you're drawing boobs as an adult is an indicator of whether you should be in prison or not.
So my best friend, Emily, we have one of our things is we text back to each other, open parentheses, space, 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 period, space, 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 close parentheses, and then again to like make boobs in like the AC, that like the old emojis of boobs. And then we also write 8 =, =, =, capital D, squiggle, squiggle.
Great. So you're next.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm guilty.
with a message like, I hope this is what you want. Here it is.
No, it's generally like in a funny, silly context, not in like a sexual context at all.
But I think text boobs are fine. I think drawing boobs are.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Also,
yeah,
this birthday book. Why would the first thing to come to mind? Like, here, let me draw. I'll draw a woman's body. I'll draw boobs. Like, you can,
yeah. If the first thing that comes to mind when you're writing a birthday card for somebody is to draw them pornography, it's maybe a red flag.
Yeah.
So, interestingly, the guy who replaced Les as interim CEO when he stepped down in 2019 was a guy named Stuart Bergdorfer. He had been CFO for more than 10 years. Several years prior to him becoming interim CEO, he actually had an affair with another employee at the company. This was an open secret because flyers with both of their photos were placed on car windshields in a company parking lot, saying in part, quote, "Hope you two can buy enough lingerie to make up for the damage you caused your families, !! News of their affair and the flyers spread through the company and even reached at least one Wall Street analyst. The matter was never addressed internally with rank and file staff. Mr. Bergdorfer and the employee who left the company this year were recently married." And here's Mr. Bergdorfer. Is that what you expected him to look like?
Bergdorfer?
I don't know why, but
He
it
hardly
always
knows her.
It always creeps me. It always creeps me out even more when the people involved in these harassment cases are like objectively good looking.
Oh, you think that guy's objectively good looking?
He's not. When I read about that story in the book, I assumed he'd be like kind of old and scraggly. I assumed he would look more like this guy. His he does look like Felipe, but his name is Charles McGuigan.
Chuck McGuick.
He actually had to step down because he was in a relationship with an employee, and people thought that's weird because you're overseeing HR right now.
Look, it's a small bowl in Columbus, Ohio. There's not much to choose from.
Guess. Mostly everyone who was left at the top of Victoria's Secret when Les stepped down were men that he either hired or promoted, and fish rots from the head down. But it makes sense that this organization kind of catered to deviants. I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise. In an interview with Fortune in 1985, this is back before, in the words of Yolanda Foster, Les was anything in this world. He said, women dress to please men. You're not selling utility. That's why uptight women stockbrokers will put on a G-string when they get home.
Huh?
I know. It doesn't even make sense.
That's why
uptight women stockbrokers put on a G-string when they get home. What? I mean, I don't know if Les knows anything more about a G-string, but that's actually, to me, more uptight. I don't know. Anyway, here he is, I think, smoking cigars. These are two, this is Jack Kessler and John McCoy. They're big, like, Columbus, Ohio, like movers and shakers. And I think that they're taking some puffs of a cigar. Les Wexner is the founder of L Brands, which started with the Limited and at one point included Victoria's Secret, of course, Limited 2, Express, Abercrombie & Fitch, Bath & Body Works, stores that, if you close your eyes, like, to me, smell like Auntie Anne's and Cinnabon.
Don't forget about Lane Bryant.
Oh, Lane Bryant, yep. He was very much king of them all. And by the early 1990s, he's a billionaire, easily the richest man in Ohio. He still is, with a net worth of over $7 billion. And if you listen to Les speak, I really struggled because I heard about all of the horrific things that went on under his watch and that he allegedly participated in. And then I listened to him speak and I was like, I was like the people in Love is Blind. I'm having a hard time matching the actions with the voice here. Did you listen to him speak at all?
Yeah, the Limited. Because I had limited assets. People thought it was a terrible name. They said, it sounds like a train. And when is the Limited leaving town? And I said, no, it describes the assortment and it's a romantic name.
Did you get the vibe of him? Like, he seems like little grandpa.
I was so enamored with his little rosy cheeks.
I know.
I was like, is he blushing those?
Kind of like the other 90s guy that we covered this season. He's cherubric.
Cherubric.
Now you know
Good
that word. That's some recall. Do you remember what that word means?
Cute.
Yeah. Like a little angel, ironically. I'm going to play a couple clips. This one I think is really prescient. His father, who dies about 10 years later, takes him on a long walk on the beach and tells him basically, like, when I die, your mom is your responsibility.
Your mom's an uptight bitch.
That's why
make sure she's buried in a G-string.
No,
you
that's
missed
not
that
what
part?
he said. I missed that. It wasn't in the book, but he did say your mom is your responsibility.
It's kind of a scene from a movie of a father and son walking on the beach and the father saying, I'm not going to be here, so this is what I want you to know. I think he wanted me to make sure that I understood my responsibilities to my mom.
I'm very happy to say that we know a lot about Les's upbringing, which means we can psychoanalyze the shit out of him. Here he is on the cover of New York Magazine with the headline, The Billionaire Bachelor, and he's with two models from The Limited. One who is wearing an absolutely insane, like, mid-'80s bob haircut. They really went fucking crazy with, like, those type of shears that give you, like...
Oh, yeah.
What are those called?
The texturing shears.
Texturing shears. They really went like, whoa. I mean, it's just
when
crazy.
somebody uses that and, like, they comb your hair and then it just all comes out, you're like, whoa,
yeah.
Is that mine?
They did this woman dirty. So most people actually assume that he was gay, and that's why he wasn't married until 1993 when he was 56. Quote, a lot of people think because I am not married, I am asexual or homosexual, but I enjoy a relationship with a woman, he said to New York Magazine. He also said that he had a demon living inside of him.
Okay.
A Dybbuk. You ever heard the word Dybbuk?
No.
A Dybbuk is actually the first time I ever heard of that word was on the short-lived but incredible television show called Difficult People with Jackie Hoffman. Talks about a Dybbuk. And it's basically like a Yiddish spirit. He says the Dybbuk is the reason that he's not comfortable in his own skin, always moving from project to project. It causes him anxiety, and he always has music on because he can't stand the sound of like his own thoughts, which... I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. Take from that what you will in terms of having a demon living inside of you, what that might mean. He was obsessed with working. He was a classic workaholic. Childhood friend of Les's says business was Les's life. Les said, I built a business so I could create my own world. But I think the reason he never got married until much later was that he already had a pretty influential woman in his life, Mommy. So let's go back to Les's childhood. Corporate gossip number 2 is Mamacita. So here he is in 1976. Classic 70s hairdo. Wexner was born in Dayton, Ohio in 1937 to Russian Jewish parents who worked in the garment business. When he entered high school, his family moved to Columbus from Dayton, and his father opened a small women's apparel store called Leslie's. It was painful, Les later said, of the lack of stability during this time. His parents turned to him for advice at an early age, asking for his thoughts on Harry's career or where the family should live. Quote, I remember being at the age of 10 or 11, going to bed crying and saying, they won't let me be a kid and I can't be an adult. And I'll tell you, being parentified at a young age can definitely cause like some control issues. So I'm sure that was very difficult for him. Les's dad didn't seem super supportive. Harry frequently described his son as clumsy and once told him he would never be a merchant. His friends at the time say that he was shy, reserved, conflicted. Many people who have interacted with Les in the early years say he was on the spectrum. When he was a little kid,
Tamara too.
Tamara. From OC.
Tamara Judge.
I'm so far behind. Is she now saying she's on the spectrum?
Yeah, it was like a episode 1 thing.
Oh, wow. When he was a kid, he wanted to be an architect. He was inspired by Howard Rourke, who's the protagonist from Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. Boys really do read that book and they go, okay, I'm good. You know what? Don't need to read another book in my life. The information in this one supports everything I believe when I'm 13. Can't imagine there's anything else I need to know. Wrap it up, boys. I'm going to base my entire life around this book. He ends up going to Ohio State, studies business, and he goes back to work for the family. He and his dad butt heads, and eventually he quits. He gets a $5,000 loan from his Aunt Ida. That would have been about $53,000 today. And he opens a women's clothing store called The Limited in Northeast Columbus. Eventually, there would be 750 Limited stores, and they'd bring in $1 billion annually. This was the first Limited.
You know what's crazy? Right? So in August, I was looking at the timeline of all this. August 1964, 1963, he gets the loan. Starts the Limited. August of 64, he opens his second store. In 1969, 5 years later, the Limited goes public on the New York Stock Exchange.
I was shocked by that too. And do you know how many stores that they had at that point?
Let's say 10.
6.
Jeez.
It's great. Like I need to know more about that. Like,
I think that was the norm back then, because I've read a similar book about Dick's Sporting Goods, and I think they went public early on. I think it was just the way you raised money.
I was just going to say, I think that we have many more richer people who can provide seed capital for these businesses that can delay them going public until later. And I think it's definitely an impact of private equity, because before this, there was really no access to that kind of capital unless you would go to like the Chamber of Commerce. You could get a loan from a bank, but like other than that, you'd really have to go public. So I had the same exact reaction as you. I was like, Jesus, that was so quick with 6 stores. So within 1 year of the Limited opening, Harry closes the business and goes to work for his son, which I thought was interesting. And in 1974, he dies of a heart attack. now it's just Bella and Les with no dad. And dad told Les, she's your responsibility once I die. One former limited executive say the relationship between mom and son was kind of sick. This is from the book. For 34 years, she served as the limited corporate secretary. A former executive recalled that Bella belittled her son in meetings when she didn't like his ideas. Quote, "It'll never work. Don't do it." Bella would yell at him in front of his staff. Quote, "I remember sitting there thinking, how dare this woman," the executive said. Les seemed to be terrified of Bella. According to one executive, Les would sometimes stay at his house in Palm Beach so that Bella, whose Palm Beach house was nearer to Les's, wouldn't know he was in town. Quote, "He was afraid of her. She was running his life."
Crazy.
Into Les's adulthood, Bella became uncommonly close to her son. She occupied an office across the hall from him at limited HQ.
As her secretary with an office.
I don't know if she was a secretary proper. I think that was just a title that they gave women at that time because they couldn't be executives, but it really did seem like...
She had an office nameplate that said, "Mommy."
Yeah, mommy. Mommy. Mamacita. She was a board member. Les often deferred to Bella and referred to her as mother.
Dude, get some boundaries.
This guy wouldn't know a boundary if it swiped him on his bald head. So there is some arrested development going on here. You know, he talks about being optimistic and he's like, I think the best of everybody. I always think everybody has the best intentions. But like, my hot take is he is disturbingly emotionally stunted. And he says to New York Magazine, "I hate to think of myself as an adult because when you do, you die." And I think there's a lot of shitty people doing a lot of stuff around him. And he's very much giving, "Oh, gee shucks. I just gave everybody always the benefit of the doubt." And, you know, I was talking to Dad about this recently because he and Mom were just on a trip and they were in Amsterdam and they meet this guy who was in his 90s and he's a lawyer in Columbus. And he knew Les Wexner peripherally. And apparently our dad asked him, "How do you think Les got wrapped up in all the Jeffrey Epstein stuff?" And the lawyer said, "Les is notoriously very trusting." And listen, I understand being trusting, and I think that's fine if you're a solopreneur or if you're self-employed and the only person you're putting at risk is yourself. But when you are the richest and most influential man in the state, when you have thousands of people working for you, you know, by 1986, Wexner is 6th on the Forbes 400 list of richest Americans. He's got a net worth of $1.4 billion. Fine, you're optimistic and naive, but a 16-year-old was sexually assaulted next door by a known pedophile, and you're enabling that pedophile. Like, at some point, you have to take accountability and not just like shift the blame to mommy or the other people that work for you. And I just feel like right now, this is like the exact right time to do Whittle Baby.
No,
come on.
Why don't you do a version with the baby voice and then a version without the baby voice, and then you say, "Hey, if you want to hear this version with the baby, like interactive, like Black Mirror, if you want to hear the version with the baby voice."
Yeah.
If you don't want to hear the version with the baby voice, skip ahead 1 minute.
Well, we have talked about either punishing the haters by making them pay
Just do
for
the
a
baby
non-baby
voice and
voice.
put a thing in. Because for me, if I go back and re-listen to this, I don't want to. I gotta listen to it live, and I'm gonna be here cringing. But I understand the need, so I don't want the listeners who hear a baby voice and cringe. Like, it's not just your baby voice. You remember when I was visiting friends, a couple friends, and they were doing baby voice the entire weekend?
I know. That's when we first had the discussion about retiring the baby voice, you brought up that story and you said it's truly cringe and I hate every second that you do it. And I understand that. So I just want you to know.
Go ahead. So do it.
No,
and then
I'm
put
not
a
going to do
warning.
it. I'm not going to do it. But I just want everybody to know I want to be credited for exhibiting extreme restraint here because I think it's really appropriate.
You can't ask for that. You just have to restrain. That ruins the restraint.
It's on my part of the podcast, I can do what I want. Anyway, Les broke up with a casual girlfriend in the 1980s, a woman who had converted to Judaism in the hopes of marrying him. What I think is interesting about this is when they broke up, he gave her $10 million and had her sign an NDA. Why don't I get to date exes? None of my exes gave me $1 when they broke up with me. He was never able to find a wife that mommy would approve of. Here they are together. I mean, practically tonguing.
Gross.
Quote, Bella was a difficult woman who wanted tremendous control, and no one was ever going to be good enough for her. This is Les's business associates said of his marriage prospects. Les talks about Bella. He says she set high standards, as close to 100%, and she also gave him the idea that everything was possible. She was very brave. Quote, you can do it. We can do it. The world will be perfect. Ugh. Eventually, Les marries a woman named Abigail. He took Bella off the L Brands board of directors while she was dealing with an illness around the same time. Interestingly, replaced her with Jeffrey Epstein. Once Bella recovers, she tries to get her seat back, and Jeffrey Epstein sued her. The suit was settled, but when Les married Abigail, who was 25 years younger than him, Bella came to the wedding, moved to New York, and never saw them again. She was 93 years old when she died in 2001. There was speculation about Les's marriage. Was it romantic? Was it a PR relationship? Either way, they're still married, pictured together frequently. I think she would be a great New York housewife. But what do you think is going on there marriage-wise with him?
Marriage-wise?
Do you think it's a PR relationship?
Could be. It certainly came up in a time where relationships for... It's easier for him to have a relationship than to continue to be questioned about his sexuality or whatever else he's going on. So check that box. Done.
To be completely honest... When he talks about her in the interviews that I've seen, he talks about how well she knows him, what a good guide she is, and it does seem that they have at least platonic love for each other. And I think that's more than a lot of people can say.
If she's just his best friend, fine, whatever. More power to you.
Yeah.
Who am I to judge?
Exactly. That's not really something.
I don't. Yeah, it doesn't. You know what? I don't give a shit.
I know. That's like a big. It's funny because when you talk about Les Wexner, it's like one of the first topics that come up, and I'm like, that is truly like on the fucking bottom of the list for me in terms of the things that.
Yeah,
he
if he wants to pay somebody for friendship who he enjoys their time, whatever.
Yeah, they have a son together too.
Great.
This is interesting. This is about 4 times more interesting than that. Their house, the mega mansion that they end up building in Columbus, has a hydraulically operated platform that lifts the vast dining room table from the basement kitchen below. Staff could fully set the table downstairs before sending it up to guests.
Wow, you must really hate setting a table, or you must really hate your help.
You hate seeing people.
Yeah.
He is incredibly shy, from what I understand, and awkward. He also has a party barn for large events.
Yeah, that goes.
Which
both
is honestly
those things check out.
Appropriate for this because I did a lot of partying in the 2000s in barns. So back to business. You noted he took his company public in 1969. But again, he's got 6 stores, and his huge thing is scaling. He's got these huge grand visions. He wants huge distribution centers, chains of stores, more. That's his thing. There's something about this constant moving and growth, and it doesn't end up being real growth in the end, right? It's just a ton of stores with sales that are completely flat. It's very Subway pilled. Notably, one of the first U.S. clothing stores to use manufacturing in Hong Kong and Taiwan was the Limited. Remember, at the end of the 70s, more than 70% of apparel bought by Americans was made in America. This was pre-NAFTA. And he's kind of Steve Madden-ish. He has no issue like copying competitors, copying high fashion designer pieces, especially in the late 70s, early 80s. Like the economy is in the gutter, right? And people are open at this point to buying cheaper clothes. You know, you go back and listen to that Crazy Eddie episode, we talk about some of the changes in consumer behavior around that time that I think really benefited Les. And I think that's important context. So we start to talk about his most notable acquisition, Victoria's Secret. You do not want to end up being the subject of a corporate gossip podcast episode. You don't want to be the manager that everybody's talking about. And that's where Manager Method comes in. Founded by friend of the pod, Ashley Hurd, you might have seen her super helpful and quite funny videos on TikTok and Instagram. That's where we first met. From Manager 101 with the foundational things every manager needs to know, to Manager 201, which focuses on strategic leadership that drives results without driving people out the door. Manager Method gives you the tools to actually lead your team well. If every team was led by Ashley or somebody who took her courses, we would have no podcast. So maybe I shouldn't be running this ad. Anyway, you'll learn how to give feedback that lands, to handle conflict before it blows up, and to set clear expectations that keeps your team performing and wanting to stay. They have toolkits for organizations to roll it out and manager cohorts to help drive it home. Good management is possible and clearly much needed. Visit managermethod.com to learn more and use code GOSSIP for 10% off any course. Founded by friend of the pod, Ashley Hurd, you might have seen her super helpful and quite funny videos on TikTok and Instagram. That's where we first met. From Manager 101 with the foundational things every manager needs to know, to Manager 201, which focuses on strategic leadership that drives results without driving people out the door. Manager Method gives you the tools to actually lead your team well. If every team was led by Ashley or somebody who took her courses, we would have no podcast. So maybe I shouldn't be running this ad. Anyway, you'll learn how to give feedback that lands, to handle conflict before it blows up, and to set clear expectations that keeps your team performing and wanting to stay. They have toolkits for organizations to roll it out and manager cohorts to help drive it home. Good management is possible and clearly much needed. Visit managermethod.com to learn more and use code GOSSIP for 10% off any course. So corporate gossip number 3 is, oh, Jack Welch, didn't think I'd see your stupid face here again. So in 1982, Les purchases a high-end, elegant, and successful lingerie shop from a couple named Roy and Gay Raymond. Before doing research for this episode, I had heard the urban legend, and tell me if you heard this too, that Roy had jumped to his death from the San Francisco Bridge because he was so upset.
It's called the Golden Gate Bridge. I don't know anyone who where'd you get that name? The San Francisco Bridge. There's several.
You're absolutely right. I don't know why I wrote down San Francisco Bridge, but yes, the famous Golden Gate Bridge of San Francisco.
Yes.
That he had jumped to his death because he was so upset that like this store that he had sold to Les Wexner for $1 million was now like a multi-million-dollar business, and he couldn't stomach that. Have you ever heard that? Yeah. So that's not entirely true. That is how he died, which is incredibly sad. And I didn't know this. He died at only 46 years old. But when Roy and Gay sold the business, even though it was bringing in a decent amount of revenue, like Roy was struggling to manage the financial aspects of the business, and it was already on the brink of bankruptcy when Les bought it for the equivalent of $3.5 million today. Eventually, the Raymonds divorce, and the night before his death, she gets a call from his then girlfriend describing a fight they had while he was developing another new store concept. Since they had divorced, like they had another bankruptcy, and like Roy was always trying to kind of like make new businesses, and like eventually he just was feeling like, I'm not making anything that's successful. I think that's very interesting because I think in many ways Les is the same way. In the book, they describe Gay being a customer of Victoria's Secret. She brings her daughter much later in the early 2000s.
She's an uptight stockbroker who likes to settle down by wearing a G-string.
She's actually a physical therapist. And she brings her daughter into Victoria's Secret, and she's looking for something made of silk, and they're like, we don't carry anything made of silk. And she's like, well, you really, the quality of the product has suffered significantly. Okay, so back to Victoria's Secret. Les had shored up the finances, and by the mid-1990s, 200 million catalogs are going out to 10 million people annually. I didn't know this either. There was actually a story behind Victoria, who Victoria was. So she's a fictional woman who had been raised in England by a successful London businessman and a French mother. She was well-educated and married to a barrister. Company decisions were often made by asking, would Victoria do this? It's very Tinks coded. At this point, he had also purchased Henry Bendel, Abercrombie & Fitch, Lane Bryant, and Open Limited too. And people are starting to notice a playbook with Les. This is from a great 1996 New York Times article called The Merlin of the Mall Tries Out New Magic. So I'm just going to read a paragraph. Over the years, the Limited had fallen into an alarming pattern. It develops exciting new stores, nurtures them into industry leaders, and then watches them flounder when new toys enter the playpen. Mr. Wexner's habit of flitting from one project to another has frustrated some big shareholders. In 1985, after buying Henry Bendel, Mr. Wexner obsessed over every detail of store openings and, former employees said, promised to roll out stores across the nation. By 1990s, Bendel's sales had fallen flat. Never fear, Mr. Wexner already had his eyes on Bath & Body Works. But as that unit hit full stride this fall, sales flattened at the Victoria's Secret catalog division. Now, Mr. Wexner expresses excitement about his sporting goods venture called Galen's Trading Company, with just 6 stores so far, but in ambitious plans. Mr. Wexner concedes that he does not always operate on the same plane as everybody else. I think temperamentally, I've always lived in my own world, and that world is very much in the future. I don't get much pleasure out of today.
So, small note, it's Galleons.
Sorry, Galleons. It was purchased by Dick's, right? Yeah. It's crazy because, like, once you're a billionaire, people will bring you to these conferences and business schools and they'll say you're a visionary. But, like, in my opinion, having a vision is not special if you don't have the patience to execute. And in this way, it's very Subwaysian, right? If you're a new listener and you haven't listened to our episode on Subway, I think you should go back and listen to it because we reference it a lot. It's just the idea of like needlessly opening up more and more and more and more and more business just to create the illusion of success. And then ultimately you realize it's like a house of cards. Some retail experts, according to that story, says that his management style has depressed morale and earnings. They say he's both a micromanager who wants his hands on all parts of the business, often at the expense of others' ideas, and at the same time, he's positioned as a distanced and overtaxed executive who increasingly gives power to corporate bean counters. They're saying, like, this store is starting to expand and it's becoming more bureaucratic, but also, like, the merchants are being given less and less control over the inventory that they sell. And again, we saw this in the what was it?
Bed Bath & Beyond?
The Bed Bath & Beyond episode, where a lot of these store merchants used to have control over, like, hey, on the East Coast, they like duvets. In the Midwest, they like comforters. And ultimately, that control ends up getting ceded to the top, and the entire experience kind of suffers for the customer. And that same thing happened to the Limited. At this point, they describe that there are only 3 of 13 board members that don't have direct ties to Les, and those 3 band together and demanded that Wexner gets help running the business. Who does he turn to for help? Changes to the business became apparent to Les after a series of conversations with Jack Welch. Oh, look who it is! The king of a shitification himself, Jack fucking Welch. No matter whose idea it was, 1993, Wexner hires a consultant, Leo Schlesinger, a Harvard Business School professor who has since been made a director at the company. And I'll give you one guess where Schlesinger got his start before he became a Harvard Business School professor.
McKinsey?
CPG.
Oh, P&G.
You got it. Procter & Gamble, baby. God, it's crazy. I mean,
one of Ohio's second favorite sons.
It's just crazy how that store has its executive. I mean, P&G really is the General Electric of packaged goods, just in terms of churning out executives who believe exactly what they believe and like getting their little.
In my time as a brand manager of Tide Pods, I learned.
Yeah, say they don't even pay attention. They say, "Oh, Tide Pods, yummy." They end up hiring consultants from Boston Consulting Group, and they implement this brain buster. Mr. Wexner said recently that, quote, forcing turnover, being aggressive about it, is healthy for the organization. Another former employee recalled that phone records were scoured by company executives to determine which employees were talking to recruiters. Mr. Wexner said he could not recall such an inquiry.
Well, I mean, you'd be silly not to think that your work isn't tracking you when you go on LinkedIn job searching, though.
Yeah,
Same thing.
I know. I think it's pretty fucking insane that these consulting companies that come in and like the first trick they pull out of their hat is forced ranking and forced layoffs of the bottom 10% of the company. Like, that's their idea. Okay, yep, we heard that in 2000. Do you have anything new? To say that you have to force turnover when you have mother on the board is fucking wild. It's also ironic because Les notably never wanted conflict. He didn't fire people. He had guys do it for him. And one of those guys was Jeffrey Epstein. So you ready to turn to corporate gossip number 4?
Yeah, let's get into the juice.
So corporate gossip number 4 is trigger warning, obviously. Sorry we're doing 2 back-to-back episodes with sexual assault, but that's just how it do be when you cover billionaires. This is 1986, the year that Les met Jeffrey Epstein. Here he is announcing the expansion of the Limited. And then here's the only picture I could find of Jeffrey Epstein in 1986. This is a passport application. So this isn't a normal Jeffrey Epstein story where we tell you that like Les Wexner was seen partying with Jeffrey Epstein or like he was in his black book or on his private jet once. Like this is much, much bigger. It is very likely that Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't have been Jeffrey Epstein without Les Wexner. We talked about this briefly on our Patreon with JP Morgan, and we're going to get into much deeper. So a lot of this comes from a 2021 article by Vanity Fair called The Mogul and the Monster. They meet sometime in 1986 through insurance mogul Robert Meister, and they immediately hit it off. So much so that Wexner gave Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney over his entire estate. Giving somebody power of attorney is something that's something generally that you do if somebody is in a conservatorship or otherwise incapacitated. But Les is 49 when he meets Epstein, and he's at the peak of his career. It confused everybody that was close to Les. Okay, so there's a story about Les's former financial advisor, Harry Levin, who is sent to New York City on Les's behalf to meet with Epstein. And he tells Les, I don't know about this guy. He's kind of a weirdo. But a few weeks later, Epstein shows up in Columbus and announces that Les had put him in charge of his finances. Harold Levin tries to protest, but he says Wexner stops taking his calls. Levin couldn't stand having Epstein as a boss. Quote, he was an asshole, the most arrogant person I ever met. A few months later, Levin quit. On my last day, Epstein walks into my office and held up a piece of paper. He bragged that Les had given him power of attorney over his money. I worked for Les for 7 years, and I never had power of attorney. After Levin quits, he says his life unraveled. He couldn't find a job. Friends told him Epstein was spreading rumors around Columbus and on Wall Street that Wexner had him fired for misappropriating funds. His wife filed for divorce, and their 3 children stopped speaking to him. Quote, I had a nervous breakdown. I was living out of my car. He showered at state parks. Epstein ruined my life. I lost everything. So how did this happen? Okay. Meister, the guy who first introduced him, said that Epstein was a great bullshit artist. People who knew Epstein remarked at his savant-like skill at impressing powerful older men. Quote, Jeffrey was a flatterer, said an interior designer who met Epstein in the 80s. Jeffrey would call me every day and say, oh, you're so brilliant. You're the best. Epstein's friend, a founder of the New York Academy of Art, said Epstein's magnetism was almost impossible to resist. If you had hundreds of millions of dollars and you knew Jeffrey, there's a high likelihood that you'd give it to him. He's that good of a con man. He ends up living in Wexner's Manhattan townhouse, which was sold to him at a steep discount. It's the same property that's described in the New York Times article this year as Epstein's Manhattan lair. There's this art in it.
This is the East Side house.
Yes.
So that was Wexner's first?
Yes.
The East Side townhouse, yeah. Lauren, my wife used to live near that.
So he's got this foyer, and on it is what appears to be a bronze statue of a child bride hanging on a rope. It's weird. He buys property in New Albany, the community where Les had lived and where he had his mega mansion. This is Les's mega mansion. I'm sure you saw that. Yeah. And then here is the mansion where Jeffrey Epstein lived. It's a half a mile from Les's house, which in New York standards is a neighborhood away. But in New Albany, when there's miles of farmland between you, that's practically your next door neighbor.
Right.
As Epstein and Wexner grow closer, a 1989 Boston Globe profile detailed Wexner's rise, reported that his September 1st diary entry that year read, "I finally like myself." Epstein kind of plays the role of abusive, controlling boyfriend, in my opinion. Wexner's physical appearance changed. A former Victoria's Secret executive recalled Wexner dyed his hair. He hired a live-in personal trainer. He got a new wardrobe. Quote, Les would wear the tightest jeans you've ever seen. I don't know how it didn't cut off his blood supply to his private parts. If they questioned Epstein to Les, he'd cut them off. Executives didn't understand why Wexner, a brutal boss and a famous control freak, allowed Epstein such latitude. Les berated people, but with Epstein, he took a more sympathetic stance. Les would defer to him in any meeting. Les would put his hand on Epstein's shoulder. In case this thought is crossing your mind, Brad Edwards, a lawyer for some of Epstein's victims, asked Epstein if he had a sexual relationship with Wexner, and he said no. This is fucking crazy. In 1996, The Limited starts to think about spinning off Abercrombie & Fitch on the New York Stock Exchange, so it would be its own company. Epstein flies to Columbus and tells executives that he would decide the share price.
Right.
Executives worry.
Wait, Epstein
said, I'm deciding the
got it.
IPO price. Executives worried that Epstein was committing insider trading because a couple days earlier, somebody sold a large chunk of Limited stock. Quote, there was so much concern that one of the lawyers looked around the room and said, are we going to go to jail for this? According to the executive, Epstein did ultimately decide the share price. So there's this financial advisor who speaks to Vanity Fair for this article, The Monster and the The Mogul and the Monster. His name is Sandy Lewis. For what it's worth, Lewis was indicted for stock manipulation, but was pardoned by Bill Clinton. Lewis said that he thinks Epstein was a con artist who took advantage of Wexner's personal weaknesses. I can't imagine, frankly, why a man of his intelligence would simply hand the controls over to another guy. He said that Wexner was always a lonely guy, and this con artist, this fucking idiot, comes into his life. My feeling is that he had been seduced, and I don't mean seduced in a physical sense. I mean emotionally seduced out of his loneliness to trust this guy, and he figures he's so fucking smart he can trust everybody. Lewis said that Wexner was looking for a friend. I really believe that, he said. And I think that when you see a man who is as bright as he is and he's looking for a friend and he picks the wrong friend, then there's hell to pay. Eventually, after everything comes out about Epstein, Les said that he had been taken advantage of and that Epstein misappropriated vast sums of money. Wexner, he said, was a shy man who got taken by Epstein. Wexner was so bright and capable, Lewis said, but the talents that he had, those kinds of talents are not financial talents. They're not numbers. He doesn't look at numbers. He doesn't want to. Excuse me. First of all, no. Even if you were taken advantage of, everybody told you this guy was a creep.
Yeah.
You had all the information in the world. I think about this little bit different, but with Brittany Cartwright and Jax Taylor. Like, yes, I feel bad for what happened to her, but there was ample evidence that he was going to cheat, lie, and manipulate. And are you shocked when he does those things? So there's a little bit of it that's on you. I'd have sympathy for you if this was just a case of you individually suffering harm from a predator, but your naivete put other people in danger. In the Brittany case, I give her credit because once she realized that Jax was dangerous, she got her and her son out of that situation. Can't say the same for Les Wexner. And I also don't believe that you're just so bad at numbers that you don't realize that he had siphoned away millions of dollars. Like, what the fuck? It just does not pass the sniff test. There's an attorney for the late Virginia Giuffre, who is one of Epstein's accusers, who said, there is no question that Epstein could not have done what he did without the support of people that provided him money. In 2019, the Wall Street Journal reported that Epstein earned $200 million from Wexner. A lawyer for Wexner puts that number closer to $400 million.
Wow.
In a 2016 court deposition, Giuffre also alleges the following. This is from the deposition. Question: was Les Wexner one of the powerful business executives that you were trafficked to? Answer: yes. Question: how many times did you have sex with Les Wexner? Answer, multiple. Epstein also had used his proximity to Les, saying that he was a Victoria's Secret model recruiter. According to a New York Times investigation, quote, he invited them for auditions, which at least twice ended with Mr. Epstein assaulting them. 3 L Brands executives said that Mr. Wexner was alerted in the mid-1990s, he cut off ties in 2007, about Mr. Epstein's attempts to recruit women. The executive said there was no sign that Les had acted on these complaints. Like I said, Les severed ties to Epstein in 2007, but it was only after Epstein died that Les would speak at all about their relationship. And that's when, in 2019, that he said that he had been taken advantage of. You know, they said they cut ties, but Alan Dershowitz, when he was lawyer for Epstein, said that Epstein told him, Les will never testify against me.
Wow.
What does that tell you? What does that tell you? Like, is it because he has information on him?
Yeah.
That would be my guess. There were multiple investigations into Les's relationship with Epstein. The results were never shared publicly, but that law firm also had direct ties to Les. There was another investigation by a firm that shareholders requested. I couldn't find any results of that investigation. As we mentioned at the top of this episode, Les stepped down from L Brands CEO in 2020, and then he and his wife stepped down from the board in 2021. He and Abigail are still a huge deal in Columbus, and there have been calls for OSU to divest from Les, but I imagine at this point they're as intertwined as talc and asbestos.
Ooh, deep cut. Nice.
You know, can you take the Wexners out of OSU at this point? According to activist investor Barrington Capital, the Wexners are the university's largest donors. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in the after show. If you search Les Wexner now on Google, the first item that pops up are his connections to Jeffrey Epstein. Also that he bought a Martha's Vineyard home formerly owned by the Obamas. So let's talk about where we are now. L Brands now is just called Bath & Body Works, and Victoria's Secret is spun off and it's its own company. If you had invested $1,000 in either of these companies in 2021, you'd have $732 in Victoria's Secret stock and $432 in Bath & Body Works stock. I did check in on the Bath & Body Works Reddit page. There are people complaining that the labels on the soaps and the candles are AI generated.
Yep.
And if you know anything about Bath & Body Works, that's actually a huge deal because the soaps are like decorative. Like they're made to be, you know,
Right,
something that you put on
out.
your,
Yeah.
kept out. In terms of Victoria's Secret, there's a couple more CEOs since 2021. The most recent one, Hillary Super, was put in the top job in 2024. Listen, at this point, the market for both bath products and undergarments is incredibly saturated. Plus tariffs. I didn't even include that in this article, but I mean, that's a huge issue for this company as well. But you have, in terms of bath products, you have Aesop, Malin & Getz. I know that's your favorite. Sephora and Ulta sell tons of bath products. You got TJ Maxx, Target, Home Goods, and then for women's underwear, there's Aerie, Skims, both incredibly popular.
Well, the CEO is from Savage Fenty.
Right, that was notable, but that's another one of their competitors, right? Listen, a lot of people just think that Victoria's Secret is past its prime. I think there's the obvious fact that companies like Aerie use models that look like regular women versus Kim Kardashian of Skims, which, you know, she obviously doesn't have the body type that Ed Razek would have put on the Victoria's Secret fashion show. They did try to diversify the models on the runway, but it very much felt like a reaction to backlash. Ed Razek famously said they'd never put a transsexual on the runway or anybody who is plus size.
Right.
Notably, they've changed their stance on that. There are very few women still at the top of either of these brands, and most have been added again as a reaction to criticism. Ironically, I think if they had just stuck with being like, we're not going to put anybody on here that doesn't fit like our specific version of like what a woman looks like, I think from a business perspective, they could have been really popular with alt-right trad wives.
Oh, totally.
Like they kind of missed it. Notably, the Victoria's Secret fashion show is back just a week
it
ago.
was last night.
Did you watch it? 2 nights ago.
It wasn't live. I don't think it was live. I think it's aired later.
Oh, I have no idea. I didn't catch it. I caught some TikToks, but you know, it was canceled in 2019 after everything with Epstein came out. They said that it wasn't the right direction for Victoria's Secret, but it also just wasn't popular anymore. In 2018, only 3.2 million people watched the show. There were a lot of influencers walking, including Amelia Gray, WNBA star Angel Reese, and Olympic gold medalist Suni Lee. Lots of celebrities showed up. Sarah Jessica Parker, Dylan Sprouse. He's married to Barbara. I forgot her last name.
Palvin.
Yeah. Madison Beer, Madison LaCroix. Jenna Lyons and her girlfriend were there. Also Whitney Port.
Whitney Port. Yeah, you know how much that thing cost to put on?
How much?
$50 million.
$50 million.
Yeah, 40 to 50, that's what they said. Which, in this economy...
Do you think either of these brands will be around in 10 years? Victoria's Secret or Bath & Body Works?
I think Ty Lopez will buy them.
Yeah. In the after show, I want to talk about Wexner's influence in Columbus and specifically Ohio State. I mentioned here before, but I'm taking a class right now at graduate journalism school about New York City money, power, and politics. And it's been really enlightening to see like the mechanics behind corruption in a city. And I can imagine in Columbus, especially in the 80s, it's a pretty small circle of people. There's a Wikipedia article that lists the number of billionaires in each state. Guess how many billionaires in Ohio?
12?
7. Those 7 people are getting invited everywhere. And I'm sure every single foundation wants a piece of you. Can you name 3 of the 7 states without billionaires?
3 of 7 states without billionaires. North Dakota.
Great.
Vermont.
Yep.
I know it's somewhere northeast, yeah?
Yeah, there's another one that's northeast.
I want to say Maine.
Close.
New Hampshire.
Yep. Good job. The other states are Alaska, Delaware, New Mexico, West Virginia. States without billionaires. And do you know how many billionaires live in the U.S.?
100?
756.
Jesus.
Yeah. As of 2024. So that was an interesting fact. Before we wrap here, I want to shout out our sugar daddies.
Nora. Anastasia. Sarah. Michael.
If you want to be one of our sugar daddies and get a shout out on every single episode, you can join the Patreon at patreon.com/corporate gossip. If you join the Patreon at any level, you get 4 extra episodes every month. There's hot topic episodes, and then we do the after show, which we're about to record right now, where we talk more about Ohio State University, including a fucking insane story about the commencement speaker that they had last year, which is one of my favorite stories I think we've covered this year, and I'm so excited to talk about it. And if you join at the $10 Murdoch's Mates level, you also get to join our book club, and everybody's getting really excited for that, so I'm excited to do that as well.
Murdoch's Mates.
Murdoch's Mates. All right, well, thanks for joining. If you're on the Patreon, right. We'll see you in a little bit.
As many of you probably know, there is a nationwide government shutdown occurring right now, and with that comes the closure of national parks across the country. The shutdown has especially affected the Pullman National Historical Park in Chicago. The site was previously a company town for the Pullman Company and was home to the 1894 Pullman strike. Later in 1925, Pullman became the nation's largest employer of African Americans, where A. Philip Randolph founded the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, the nation's first black union. Obama designated the Pullman District as a national monument in 2015, and today it includes the original buildings from the town, as well as a museum dedicated to A. Philip Randolph and African American labor history. Fall is typically the park's busy season, with many tourists and schools setting up educational tours. But because of the government shutdown, the Welcome Center and park ranger tours are closed, while the park's 7 rangers are on furlough. Additionally, the A. Philip Randolph Pullman Museum is currently closed due to renovations. Although the guided tours and the Welcome Center are closed, the site is still open to the public, and many of the houses are still available for touring through events like the historic Pullman House Tour. The House Tour has seen a 30% decrease in ticket sales compared to last year, and Lynn McClure, the vice president of the Historic Pullman Foundation and organizer of the House Tour, suspects that potential visitors assumed the tour and the entire park was closed due to the government shutdown. McClure and her team have worked with the national parks to help pick up the slack by taking on their school tours and continuing to welcome visitors. The Historic Pullman Foundation is continuing to hold their own tours and events throughout the fall season that include food and live music. And although the park may not be fully up and running right now, the Historic Pullman Foundation is working to make sure it's not forgotten. I know there's a lot going on in Chicago right now, so I would first tell everyone to stay safe. But if you're able to, I would highly recommend you check the park out. It has a lot of history that I didn't know about until writing this story. I think now more than ever, it's really important that we preserve the history of all Americans and recognize the contributions they've made to our economy, our labor rights, and our rights to organize. If nothing else appeals to you, I think it's a great way to just go outside, build some community, and see some cool architecture. If you're interested in visiting, you can go to the Historic Pullman Foundation's website at pullmanil.org to learn more about their tours and for regular updates on the status of the park amidst the shutdown. And if you're interested in the Arthur Philip Randolph Museum, they are holding community events and programs off-site that you can find out about at their website, thepullmanportersmuseum.org. And if you're not in Chicago and still want to help, you can donate to any of the organizations I mentioned or to the national parks more broadly. For the Corporate Gossip Podcast, this is Elizabeth Liu.